Hey everyone, this is Rocky from WeLearnChess.com, and this is a very quick video to show an example of the middle game tactic that I mentioned that comes up in the King's Gambit accepted Fischer defense lines. It comes up pretty often in my computer analysis, or in your computer analysis too. You can click through to the opening that was played in the game, and then you can play around with the moves in the Explorer to see. With free accounts now, I think with the new version of chess.com, if you're on the new version, which you can do by clicking try the new chess.com at the bottom of your page, I think you can go a lot deeper than before. Like free accounts before could only go a few moves deep in the Explorer, but that restriction has been either completely lifted or expanded. I forget which one. So you should be able to play around with that. And also, I was actually just looking at some of the comments here that users were making, and one of the first games that I looked at actually had this tactic in it. So I thought, because I just mentioned it in my previous video, that I would go ahead and show it. Actually, I already did a computer analysis on this person's game. You can do computer analysis on other people's games now too, which I think is pretty cool. So you can go to like masters that you like to watch play if you see them like on the top live game, and you can check out their archive and you can do analyses on their games. As free members, you can only do quick analyses, I think, but still you can get a lot of interesting information out of that. Okay, so I don't think I can actually show the arrows or move the pieces, but I'll be able to explain it anyway. So this game was just, I don't know these users at all. The one guy's account's closed, so who knows what he was doing. But yeah, okay, so like I said, c3 is often played, but just because it's here doesn't mean it actually really protects this d4 pawn. If you don't know what tactic I'm talking about, you can go to my previous video, the analysis part of the last Live Blitz game, Live Blitz number 3. And a lot of things have to be in place, but black is eventually going to be able to take this pawn on d4 if black isn't careful. Because after takes, if white has to take with the pawn, it doesn't have any other pieces protecting this pawn here, then you'll be able to take back with the dark squared bishop, which forks the king and the rook in the corner. Now, obviously, a lot of things have to be in place, because right now, the knight is defending this d4 square, so that knight would have to be moved. Usually that's moved either because it sacrifices itself or because black has played g4 and bumps it. The queen is also protecting d4, but a lot of times the knight will try to develop through the d2 square, which cuts off the queen's communication with the d-pawn. Sometimes the bishop is also here too, but actually I made a mistake in my last video when I said if the bishop's on d2, then obviously this tactic won't work, because after takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, yeah, you would get the fork and you would be able to take this rook, but then you would lose the two pieces for the rook. You would get two pawns actually. So two pawns and two pieces is a little bit interesting, but your king side's pretty open. So ideally you want to have the bishop on its starting square and the rook on its starting square, so that when you take the rook in the corner with your dark squared bishop, you'd be able to get it out again. But okay, let me show you. And of course this b pawn also has to be moved. So a lot of things have to be in place, but we see all those things happen in this game, and they happen a lot actually in these accepted lines. So here we see the first one, knight to d2 covers up the queen, momentarily cutting off communication down the d file. I'm not saying that these are all the best moves necessarily, but we do see these criteria falling into place. The b pawn is moved, so now there's a little bit more open, a little more air on this diagonal towards the vulnerable rook in the corner. And the knight is bumped here, so one of the defenders of now that we know that this is sort of a weak pawn, even though it's protected by another pawn, one of the defenders has left, and the queen is no longer defending, so the only piece defending this pawn is the other pawn here. In this case, black just developed to protect this f pawn and continue the attack. And we get a couple moves here, and I think it might be here. Okay, black played a move or two first here to push for the attack a little bit. But yeah, here it is, boom, right in the middle of the board. When it looks like everything's safe, white probably wasn't thinking about this at all, and then just this tactic explodes right in his face. If he were to take this on the next move, which I think he didn't, then pawn takes, bishop takes with the fork on the king and the rook, and the bishop would be able to get back out again. And actually the bishop did develop in this game, but then it undeveloped. Oops, it did develop, but then it undeveloped too. So kind of funny. But all the criteria are in place there where the pawn was weak. and the fork eventually works. Now I didn't take this in the game, and it looks like the game came to a pretty swift end here. You always love when you can counterattack in the King's Gambit and just totally crush white with an attack instead of slowly grinding down to the end game. And it does happen sometimes. I think there's a lot of versatility to this Fischer defense, where you can either play to just consolidate your advantage and win the end game, or maybe you can go for these really sharp, timely G4 pushes to try to smash through on the king side and just crush white. So yeah, that was just kind of funny that I mentioned in my previous video that there's a softened knight takes d4 tactic. So if you play the Fischer defense as black, keep your eyes open for it, and make sure that those criteria in place so that after you take, you'll be able to take with the bishop with check, fork the rook, take the rook, and get the bishop back out. And in addition to all that, you want to make sure that in the process you're not allowing white a lot of activity towards your king side, because you would temporarily have to waste a move to get your bishop back in defense. In this game here, it could have safely been done this tactic because black's king wasn't really in danger. So okay, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you around for the next video.